Are you tired of wiping in Legend Onslaught? Are you looking for a hunter build that essentially lets you solo the entire activity while your teammates watch in awe as you kill more enemies and generate more orbs than both of them combined? A build that lets you get your tether every 10 seconds? If so, you're in the right place. In this video, I'm going to show you a hunter build that I use on stream when I run my level 50 Legend Onslaughts with chat. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure you subscribe so you never miss a future upload, and make sure to leave a comment letting me know what hunter loadouts you like to use in Onslaught. So to start, let's look at the build overall, and then we'll dive into each individual part of the build so we can look at what makes this so good in an activity like Onslaught. So the core of this build is the classic Orpheus rigs on Void Hunter, but in this one, we're going to be pairing it with Lucky Pants as well, so this is actually two loadouts in one. Orpheus rigs have been around for years, and they've always been good. These exotic boots give you ability energy, including super energy, when running Deadfall Tether based on how many enemies become tethered. With these, just through tethering enough enemies, you can earn up to 50% super energy for free. Each enemy also gives you grenade, melee, and class ability energy, but these aren't capped. Now, you also gain super energy through dealing damage to enemies, so where this exotic becomes extremely good is that by damaging tether enemies, you're technically damaging multiple enemies at once, so that super energy that you just got up to 50% is building up even quicker up to 100% so quickly because you're damaging so many enemies. The other piece that we use is Lucky Pants. So Lucky Pants are used for certain parts of this activities, and if you're a frequent Twitch viewer, you know that Lucky Pants almost never leaves my hunter's arsenal. This exotic greatly boosts hand cannon damage up to 600% increased damage at max stacks, and you get those stacks just by dealing damage. And with certain hand cannons, this boost is so powerful that I wouldn't be surprised if it gets altered at all in the final shape. In regards to weapons that I use, I like to use Warden's Law with 4th times the charm and Vorpal weapon, Indebted Kindness with Beacon Rounds Volt Shot, and Gallarhorn. Now, if you don't have a Warden's Law, you can substitute this with literally any other primary of your choice, and you can ignore the Lucky Pants loadout in its entirety. Other hand cannons are nowhere near as effective as Warren's Law is, so Warren's Law is basically the must-have in slot. Indebted Kindness is an extremely powerful sidearm that just came out this season in the new Warlord's Ruin dungeon. This sidearm drops from the first encounter of the dungeon and it's a really quick farm, so if you're looking for one, I would get to farming soon. This sidearm also lets us deal with barrier champions with the artifact mods this season. I recommend Volt Shot on this with a first column perk of your choice. Con ones are Lead from Gold, Beacon Rounds, and Impulse Amplifier, but Loose Change isn't bad either. Volt Shot, however, is basically a must-want perk. If you don't own this or you can't farm it for whatever reason, a weapon like a wave frame such as Forbearance will work fine, it's just less effective, and you could also use something like a fusion rifle. Last spot is our heavy weapon. The two heavy weapons I would suggest are either Xenophage or Gallarhorn. Realistically, this comes down to a what do you prefer. I prefer Gallarhorn because I feel it's more effective for my playstyle where I jump around a lot and can blindly fire Gallarhorns in a general direction, but Xenophage is very good too if you prefer to stay in one spot, but it's required you to actually aim. Both work very well, and I know that the quickest Legend Onslaught team run uses Xenophage. I just prefer Gallarhorn. Subclass setup, I use Vanishing Step and Trapper's Ambush. Trapper's Ambush can be swapped for Stylish Executioner, but I like Trapper's Ambush for the Rift section because it lets me do that entire section without being seen at all. Stylish works there too, as long as you're able to proc it. In terms of fragments, you're definitely going to want Starvation to proc Devour. Devour restores 100 HP and grants you grenade energy on each kill that you score while Devour is active. Kills with Devour also extend Devour's duration. The other fragment that is a must-have is Reprisal. This one gives you super energy while surrounded by combatants when you defeat enemies. The last two fragments are Dealer's Choice. I use Persistence to increase my Devour and Invisibility timer, and I also use Domineering to reload my equipped weapon and increase my mobility when I tether a target. Other common choices are Undermining for weakening Void Nades and Obscurity to go invis on a finisher. In terms of stat distribution, you always want to have 100 Resilience. After Resilience, I recommend Discipline and then either Mobility or Recovery. You're getting kills with Devour, so recovery is not that good, but you also don't really need to dodge too much, and if you're using Domineering like I am, mobility isn't that important either. So it's your choice whether you'd prefer mobility or recovery as your third stat of choice. Intellect is not that needed because you're getting so much super energy just from the tether with Orpheus rigs as well as dealing damage, and intellect is just for that passive super gain. Lastly, strength is a complete waste of a perk on Void Hunter because you really don't use your melee for anything other than to dive to go invis, and if you're not using Trapper's Ambush, you're probably not going to be throwing your melee at all during this activity. In terms of mods that you're going to be running, on your helmet, I have 2 heavy ammo finders and 1 arc siphon. We're going to need a way to proc Devour, so we need arc siphon to give us an orb to proc Devour. 2 heavy ammo finders lets us gain more heavy per finder brick we get rather than just 1 finder. On our gauntlets, I've got a solar loader for Galahorn and a bolstering detonation to give class ability energy. Bolstering detonation is not really needed, and you can run an arc loader instead to help reload that sidearm if you would like. On our chest piece, I have 1 of each resist mod, however you could change one of these for a single solar reserves if you choose. Just be aware that it will be easier to die with a solar reserve mod, and it shouldn't be too much of an issue though because 99% of the time everything is dead or tethered, but it's something to be cautious of. On our legs, I have a solar scavenger, an arc scavenger, and insulation. You don't need recuperation because you're going to be proccing Devour when you pick up an orb anyway, and that's giving you health. You don't really need surges either, but if you do choose to use a surge, I would replace the arc scav for the surge. On our class item, I have Powerful Attraction to collect nearby orbs more easily, Reaper to make orbs in a pinch if needed by dodging and then getting a kill, and then Special Finisher if I find that I'm running low on special ammo. If you do choose to run a surge, Special Finisher will be a bit more annoying to run, which is why I recommend you don't use surges. So that's the weapons, fragments, and mods that we use. Is there anything else that we should look at? Well, we can take a look at artifact mods too. Some common artifact mods that you're definitely going to want is Wished into Being. This one states that while your super is nearly fully charged, ability Final Blows will spawn orbs of power. Wearing Season of the Wish armor decreases the super amount threshold. This basically lets you self-sustain tethers as well if you're getting to that point where you're tethering so much stuff and so many things are dying to those abilities. The orbs of power generated by this mod are very strong too. Each one gives you about 7% super energy. If you have 4 pieces of Wish Armor mod, the threshold goes down from 80% to 50%. I don't use any, but if you have any, you're more than welcome to use it, and you'll find that it works very well. Or the people that you're running with can use these as well. None of the other artifact mods are actually that important because we're going to be on Void for this. Running something like Flint Striker will be good because you're going to be getting a lot of rapid solar weapon final blows with Galahorn or Xenophage to give yourself Radiant. And you can also run Kindling Trigger so that your Galahorn now applies Scorch to unscorched combatants, as well as Blast Radius to give yourself armor charges with rapid final blows with rocket launchers. Other than that, none of the other artifact mods are super important. I would not recommend you run Argent Ordnance, it is not needed in this encounter, and all of the other mods are related to Strand or Stasis artifacts. So how does this look in action? So during the main waves, you're going to be on that Orpheus rig loadout. If you've watched my video on the enemy spawns on Midtown, you can use that to your advantage to pre-place tethers and go crazy with your sidearm or your heavy weapon. And don't be stingy with heavy. One of the biggest issues I see people do is they're too scared to use their heavy. If you have a teammate running something like Cenotaph, you can be very liberal with your heavy weapons. Not even that, if you have a heavy crate available, don't be not using your heavy. You're going to be grabbing it soon anyway, so fire all 9 of your rockets or all 28 of your Xenophage shots. There's no reason not to. Also, don't be stingy with your tethers. If you have one, you should not have one because you should have just used it. The only time you should not be using your tether is if a phase is about to end. Now, when do you want to swap to that Lucky Pants loadout? So, if you get Demolitionists, you should fire your tether at the add spawn choke point and then swap to Lucky Pants to kill the Demolitionists. If you get the Tormentor, once all the enemies are dead and it's just the Tormentor left, swap to Lucky Pants there. Ideally, you have someone running Div so it's easier to hit crits, but that's not needed. Last one would be for the shielded Sky Bomber. Once he's the last thing left, swap to Lucky Pants and just use that to help break his shield. If it's the Brig, that will help you break him a lot quicker as well. Last thing that you would run Lucky Pants for is for damage on the bosses. Lucky Pants is going to be better here than Orpheus in my opinion, because the super ramp up on a boss like this isn't bad anyway, especially when you're killing so many things and dealing so much damage to the boss with Lucky Pants. You get your super back so quickly, it almost feels like you have Orpheus on in the first place. Lastly, Lucky Pants just helps with boss damage here. Less time in the boss phase means the quicker your clears are going to be, and the more likely you are to clear it without dying. That's basically it. If you enjoyed, dim links for both loadouts are in the description. Make sure to subscribe and let me know what video you would like to see next.